Welcome to the Celebrating Women podcast, co-hosted by Mandee Montana and Ashley Fisher, a podcast that celebrates women, their issues, their thoughts, their lives, conversations that celebrate their gifts, their talents, their courage. It's the Celebrating Women podcast. Presented by Hand & Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler, Texas.
I'm here with Sarah, and it's that time of year, the gift-giving season, and our friends at Hand & Stone Massage and Facial Spa have some extra special Christmas promotions. So Sarah, tell us about the promotions.
So for our members, if you spend $200 or more, you do get a free massage or facial. And then as a guest, if you buy any spa package that automatically includes both the massage and facial, you get a free gift card that includes either a massage or facial.
I love that. So you can treat yourself this time of year because we all need a massage and facial,
Yes.
let's face it. It's stressful and lovely at the same time, but then you're also going to get something that you can give to someone else, right?
Exactly.
And there's always a gift that keeps on giving at Hand & Stone, right?
There is. Yes,
What is
ma'am.
that?
So we do offer a month-to-month membership. It's only $69.95 a month, and then that does get you a massage or facial each month. And then there's not any long-term contract with that.
And those stack, right? So for example, if you're busy or out of town for a month, you can roll that over.
Yes. So those services never expire. They do continue to stay on your account until you're able to come in, and then you can do both the massage and a facial in the same visit.
I love that and have definitely taken advantage of it myself. As we're giving gifts this season, who are some people that would love to receive a massage or facial?
So people don't think about it, but there's always those housekeepers, dog groomers, your mother-in-law, even your father-in-law.
Oh, yeah.
So there are tons of different people that love to receive a massage or a facial.
So as you're doing your gift giving this season, consider stopping in to Hand & Stone to take advantage of this Christmas promotion. Sarah, how do we contact you?
So we are in the Village at Cumberland Shopping Center, located just behind Cava's. You can either stop by or call into the spa at 903-345-6051, or you can even visit us online at handandstonetyler.com.
Welcome back to the Celebrating Women podcast. I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Ashley Fisher, and it's just Mandee and I in the studio this cloudy afternoon.
Yeah.
Clutching our sugar-free lattes
Coffee
and
wonderment.
chais, and it's amazing. Christmas in a cup.
Yes.
And speaking of Christmas, we just got through, when this airs, we will have just had Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And Mandee and I have been talking about, now we are in just full-fledged holiday mode at this point. And I don't know if you all know this, but sometimes this time of year can be like a little stressful.
What? We are not living in a Hallmark Christmas movie, Ashley?
We are not, which BT dubs, are you a holiday or Hallmark chick?
So I haven't, not really. However, I did find myself 3 or 4 years ago watching a lot of them. So I'm not over the top with it.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy a good Hallmark Christmas movie.
Okay.
So I can live with them or without them. I like to catch a couple. And then, I don't know, I like things from our childhood, Christmas favorites from our childhood. I'm a real sucker for like the Santa Claus and
Yes.
Christmas Vacation.
Yes.
And
Christmas Story.
Elf. And yes, A Christmas Story. I think TBS wore me out a little bit when we were kids because it was on for 24 hours.
They did. And I really don't appreciate it because my family watched that movie every year before it was cool. Before it was on 24 hours a day. And, but we decorated our Christmas tree last week. And my youngest, my 4-year-old daughter, she said, I want to watch the BB gun movie. And I felt so proud. I was like, yes, I've
she
done
knows
something
it.
right.
Yeah. It's a Wonderful Life is another favorite. Like I could go on and on. I really love Christmas movies and I love this season. I love what it means. You know, I mean, there's a lot of commercial hype, and I guess that's part of why I love like the Charlie Brown Christmas Story so much is they really address it in that one. But I love that it brings people together, that it's festive. We were talking earlier off mic, sometimes you have a lot of parties to go to, which can be really fun and also really exhausting. So to your point about stress, I think that sometimes there are some elevated expectations of people during the holidays and, you know, just everything's heightened, right?
Yeah.
So it can be good, but it also needs to come with a dose of rest.
It does. And I think that you know, growing up, like, my parents, the way they did Christmas, when I think about it now, I'm like, how in the world did y'all do what you did? I feel like you must have spent the rest of the year recovering from everything that they did at Christmas. My dad is like Santa Claus.
Oh,
I mean,
sweet.
he just always, they both went so full out.
What did full out look like for your family? Was that a lot of gift giving, or was it like holiday like engagement, like experiences? Was it lights on the house? Was it all those things?
So a lot of that, like, it was me and my dad putting Christmas lights out in the yard and meticulously. So it was like
Clark Griswold.
it was done very well and very.
I bet it was beautiful.
It really was. And there were a lot of Christmas mornings that looked like FAO Schwartz threw up in our living room.
Wow.
I, you know,
Very blessed.
very blessed. And my grandparents owned, you know, a house off of Charnwood.
Yes, I know which
And
one it is. Yeah.
So back then it was Charnwood Hill Inn, and that's where my parents were married. And it was a bed and breakfast. And my grandmother went all out. I mean, the Christmas
bet it
tree,
was
you know, they do
just
that
gorgeous and
holiday
whimsical.
tour of like the
Yes.
historic homes. Well, that home was part of that. So that's where we had our Thanksgiving. That's where we had our Christmas Eve breakfast.
Oh, you had such picturesque memories, Ashley.
I
No wonder you're a
mean-
photographer.
I felt like a princess. And
Yeah.
I, even at a young age, I knew how privileged and blessed I was for that to be our space. But it was just, everyone around me worked so hard, and it was all just to make the people around them happy. I think, like, as I've gotten older, you know, when you get married, like, it's always interesting to see how that dynamic flows. Like,
Oh, yeah, I know
were
what you
they
mean.
were they raised the same way?
Yes.
Did they take traditions as seriously? Traditions in our family are very, very serious. Whereas in Bradley's, I don't know if it was quite as like we do the XYZ every single year. You know, they of course celebrated and all of that, but it was just different.
Yeah.
So I feel like through the years, like, I've kind of taken on the walker, like, I've got to continue this on. It's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's
is
a lot. So, and I feel like for women in particular, who we love to love on our podcast,
Yes.
I feel like women tend to be the ones that are behind the scenes, making the grocery lists, making the guest list, the gift list, the, you know, like, this
Organizing
party, that
it.
party. Yeah,
They're like the
doing all of
executive
it.
producer of the holiday movie of our life, right? Like,
And
they're doing
yet-
all the background
But
stuff.
they don't get to stay behind the scenes. They have to get dressed, curl their hair, put their makeup on, and be on to do the stuff too.
Yes.
And that's a lot, ladies.
is.
It's
It
a
is
lot. So that's kind of where we wanted to, like, settle into today, is going into a season that is meant for so much joy and family togetherness, and, you know, can oftentimes get derailed by stress and the to-do list.
and expectations.
Yeah, and so we want to maybe think of, like, some practical ways to, like, alleviate that a little bit. I was scrolling Facebook earlier today, and my good friend Taylor Capps, I love this chick so
Yeah.
much. She's a mom of 5,
Woo.
and she's a freaking rock star. And
Well, I mean, having 5 kids, yes.
yes,
Just
I mean,
check
yes.
that box right there. Rock star already.
She is, and she also is a straight shooter. She needs to write a book one day.
Oh.
But she put up a post on her Facebook that I was like, yes. And she said, holiday reminder that you don't have to give up time with your kids for others. Say yes to activities that neither kid nor parent want to participate in to appease someone else, or change your schedule or traditions to fit the emotional needs of others.
Those are powerful reminders and important reminders. Because I think what you just said about all the things that start to pile on our plates during the holiday seasons, a lot of times they're piled on by others. I mean, literally and figuratively. Sometimes you show up at someone's house at Thanksgiving and they make your plate for you and you're like, well, where's that going to go? You know what I mean? Or you're at somebody's home and it's festive and your wine glass is never empty and you didn't intend for that to happen. And suddenly you're like, ooh, I'm not driving. Here are the keys, you know?
Yep.
I've experienced both of those things in my life. And I think it happens to us literally in that way, but also figuratively when we're extended invitations and we don't want to let people down and we don't want to say no, even though we might need to in the moment.
Yes. And one of my absolute delights in life is to be the permission slip writer for
you're
whoever
great at that.
I'm talking with, because I just want to write a big fat permission slip to anyone listening that you can say no.
Yep.
You can say, not this time. Or we'll get there when we get there. You know, like, because I think that we go about this season, all of us, with the best intentions, and it's so easy to get caught up in the expectation. It just happens. Like, even me, I was finding myself going, ugh, as Target was like getting all their Christmas stuff in. I was like, ugh, I'm so disgusted by the consumerism. And I'm like,
yet I love it.
I love it. Give me all the matching pajamas.
Yes.
But, you know, and I was like, man, I wish that my kids were at the age where they could understand the value in maybe going on vacation as opposed to opening up presents. But then as we march closer to it, I'm like, oh, but they would love this. And I'm a gift. And that's my love language. I'm like, oh, but they would love this and they would love that. But I can easily look up in 2 shades and realize that I have gotten up to my eyeballs in expectations as opposed to joys.
Yeah.
You know?
I do.
So we've talked before about this concept of curating. And I think if we apply it to the holiday season, maybe it would help us have like a happier, healthier relationship with the holidays and actually be able to enjoy it and not be exhausted by it.
Yes.
You know,
the last few years have been sort of strange because of the COVID pandemic and all. And I found myself enjoying the holidays a little bit more because I didn't have as many events to attend. Part of that was purposeful, like curation, because I had over the years collected too many. And I had started to sort of back them down right before the pandemic happened. And then when it did, of course, that ended all the things. But as I was telling you earlier today off mic, there was like one year where I think I had 6 different like holiday parties that I was expected to attend because it was either a work function for myself or my spouse, or I think we had 3 or 4 volunteer activities that we were both active in. And so we were expected to show up to that holiday party. And don't get me wrong, they were always fun. They were always, always, always fun. But there's kind of a time window for those in late November and early December. And sometimes you end up with 2 or 3 a week. Yeah. On top of working a full-time job, also volunteering for these activities outside of the party, having, some things a little bit less this time of year. But and then family activities or other social or friend activities. I mean, my husband and I don't have children, so we don't have that magic or that stress. Because it is both.
It is definitely both.
But it is different. But we want to show up and be present for our friends and our friends' kids and our family and our nieces and nephews and things like that. And so it looks different, but it's still that same level of who do you say no to and where do you create boundaries? And also just like time limits on things. And, I've been really watching what I eat for the last few months in like an intentional way, not in a way where I'm like cutting any specific food groups or anything like that. I'm just being very intentional with what I consume. And to that point, I've been having a lot of success with it. I'm very happy with it. Thinking ahead to Thanksgiving and Christmas and all the things that I'm invited to, I want to make sure that I feel good about my choices. So I've been intentionally thinking about that too. Like, how do I show up in a way that is grateful and participatory and also I feel good about? Yeah. And so like, whether it's with the food and drinks or with our time and our attention to various friends and family. I think that's something to think about this season because it's easy to overindulge with any of that.
Yes.
Whether it's family members that maybe need a little less time or, the chocolate pie.
Yeah, I mean, really.
It could be either.
It could be a little bit of
I'm
all
just
of the
happen to
above.
be thinking about that a lot right now because I have some people in my life that are very generous and loving, and their their love language is food. And so they'll want to feed me out of love.
Yep.
And I want to accept their love without feeling gluttonous.
Yeah.
You know? So I think we could think about that in a lot of different ways.
I mean, because it's so funny how the holidays permeate all of these different areas.
Yeah.
Even down to your diet.
Yeah.
It really does. It just affects so much. And I think, this last week I was in a counseling session, and I was talking about how very demanding this time of year is, particularly for my business.
Sure. Yeah.
And, I'm currently sitting across from Mandee with half a working face because I'm dealing with Bell's palsy that's brought on by stress and like a viral infection. And she looked at me and she was like, I'm just wondering what it's going to take for you, like, to just know that you need to rest and not wait until half of your face has fallen off. But I feel like, is that not just women in general?
It is. And it looks different for everybody. So while it's showing up for Bell's palsy with you, if I'm being really honest, for me, for the last year and a half, it's looked like having more wine than I needed to, more frequently than I needed to. And it just became a bad habit. It wasn't anything that was out of my control. Yeah. It was just
coping.
It was the way I was coping, but it wasn't, I don't feel like I was coping in a healthy way. I've since replaced that with hot tea. I still drink wine. Let me be clear. I still drink wine. But I've realized that like that doesn't need to be like a nightly thing. It needs to be when I feel good about it thing. And then I can have water, I can have hot tea or something else.
Yeah.
And still have that same sensation of I'm relaxing, I'm winding down.
Yeah.
And this feels better.
And I think if we go even further than that, like because she, my counselor was like, what can you do, like when the busy season is over, what are you going to do to set things in place next year so that this doesn't happen, this exhaustion doesn't happen? So maybe like the permission slip I want to write is you just finished Thanksgiving. So now before you go full-fledged into shopping for all the gifts and planning all this stuff, I want everybody to stop and make a plan.
I love that you just said that.
And don't deviate from that plan.
That's the key part. Once you become aware of it, which I hope that we're having this conversation, we're helping you be aware of it.
Yes, yeah.
That you then make the plan. That in a stressful situation I had years ago, my therapist said the same thing. She's like, okay, so you know that at some point this is going to happen, so let's make a plan for it. Then you can practice the plan mentally. Yeah. You can have that conversation with yourself, and then you'll feel so confident about it when you come about it again, and it won't be such a
big deal.
Yeah, it won't feel so stressful.
Yeah, and I think, we had Alyssa on the podcast last week, and we talked about all of the amazing things with Mistletoe and Magic and all the opportunities that our town provides for
and there are so many on top of that.
But if we were to try and go to every single one of those, we would all be toast.
Which, full disclosure, I will be at every single one of those we talked about.
Don't use Mandee as your example.
No. Well, okay. But here's the thing. Mandee's not working 8 to 5, somewhere 40 hours a week. Mandee's doing a lot of freelance activities where she can schedule around. And that week.
That's amazing perspective, too.
Yes. That week, that's going to be my full-time job. That's what I've chosen to do. That's why I chose that placement, because not everybody else can do what that,
See, and I love that, because for our listeners, what happens is you get the mom who is a working mom.
Yeah, that's not a good, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
That's not for you.
But who thinks, oh no, oh God, I gotta go volunteer. I gotta get my kids in a soup kitchen. I've gotta, and it's just,
You don't have to.
you don't. And so first of all, sit down and stop. Like, let this podcast be the thing that helps you sit down and stop and realize that you're not competing with anybody.
Oh, amen.
And you don't need to measure up to the person to your right or to your left, or what it looks like that family is doing, what it looks like that family isn't doing. That's not what this is about. This season is about you and your relationships, and how can you navigate this with the most joy, the most peace. And look at your plate then. And love, and I mean, just, all the good stuff.
Yes.
And then look at your plate of to-dos, and the ones that are just obligatory and like extraneous and really not necessary and not helpful. I want you to just take that off.
Yes.
Just go ahead. Go ahead. Take it off.
Yeah.
Take it off. And it doesn't mean that thing doesn't have value and that the people involved in it aren't wonderful and lovely. It just means at this time, it's just not part of the plan. And that's okay.
Right.
It's okay.
I love that you said that. Yes, I committed to doing all of that. I chose that committee, and I'm excited about it, and that will be fun for me. All that to say, that Sunday after the event is over, Mandee's going to rest.
Yes.
I'm going to rest a lot, and I will probably rest again on Monday. And I know that. That is part of the plan.
Yes.
Is to include time for rest and recovery.
Wait, you mean you like schedule that?
I do actually schedule rest and recovery.
Really?
I do.
Huh.
I'm getting better at it. We've had this conversation. That's not always been my forte.
Me either.
And it's important. And that's the other thing. I've been working out and having conversations about, how to do that in the best way possible. And do you know what the number one thing is when you're working out? The number one thing is to get plenty of rest. Because that's when your muscles rebuild. That's when all the work that you did settles into your body and prepares you to be able to do more work. But if you don't allow yourself to rest, your body's going to go into survival mode and you're not going to get any better. And it's the same thing with your time commitments and your family commitments and time with your kids and time with your spouse and time with, whether it's your in-laws or your family. Sometimes one or the other is more stressful. I mean, I'm really fortunate. I've got great in-laws. But, not everybody has that experience. And so limit your time there if they're not wonderful,
I mean, the thing is, you really do have all the freedom to give your yes when you want to give your yes, and to give your no when you need to give your no. And to say, kind of like, the Marie Kondo show where she talks about, she's like an organization queen.
What is her book? Something about the magic of tidying up?
Yes.
Yeah.
And she talks about when you are getting rid of things, you ask, does this thing bring me joy?
Yes.
And if it does, you keep it. And if it doesn't, you appreciate it. You say, thank you so much. And it goes in the pile. And I think that I would just love to offer some permission to look at all of those things in front of you, friends, and really get down to what are the main things here that I don't want to have this season without. I love going to the in-laws in my parents' house, and I love going to this event. But other than that, a lot of this other stuff is a lot of extra, and it kind of starts feeling heavy, and it starts making me feel frazzled and all this stuff. And just say, thank you so much, but we're not going to do that. A lot of people feel pressure to get family photos done at Christmas time.
Yep.
You don't have to do that.
And have the perfect Christmas card.
You don't have to do that.
No, you don't. And you can always send a card another time of year too. So, I have some friends that do that, and I love it. They send me a Happy New Year card.
I love it. My counselor, she said, because she deals with so many creatives. She said to me, I purposely do not have Christmas photos done. I said, really? Why? She said, I can't do it to y'all. I'm like, why? She goes, y'all do so much at this time of year. She said, what I do is in January, I book with a photographer and we send out Happy Groundhog Day cards.
That's so cute.
And I was like, that is incredible, because January is when your photographers need the work, because that's when it goes like radio silent.
I got married in January and my photographer was thrilled.
I'm sure she was.
Lindsay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lindsay Steele.
Yeah. I mean, because it's usually January is kind of bleak sometimes, you know? So I think, you know, taking those steps, like, all right, you've gotten past Thanksgiving, so now just pause, breathe. You're not in competition. You don't need to compare yourself with anybody. You're doing an amazing job. Period.
And if your tree is not already up, it doesn't have to go up immediately. It can go up when you're ready for it to go up. And the same thing, it can come down when you're ready for it to come down. I have a tendency to leave mine up through Epiphany.
I do too, for sure.
And this is just something that I find really funny and I sort of get on a soapbox about. But liturgically, the Christmas season actually begins on Christmas Day and it runs through Epiphany, which is not commercially advantageous for the United States.
Right.
So most of us start on November 1st now.
Yeah.
Great for the economy. And that's totally fine. But every once in a while, I'll be like, so the first day of Christmas, the song, The 12 Days of Christmas, that's what it's about. It starts on Christmas Day and it goes through Epiphany, in case you wanted to know.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This has been a nerd moment with Mandee.
With Mandee. I love this season and it's easy to get wrapped up in all the things. I do have certain Christmas movies I like to watch every year. I love the old school Rankin and Bass claymation, Rudolph and Frosty.
Yes.
And typically speaking, the broadcast networks will air them at like 7 p.m. on a special night. Sometimes it's right after Thanksgiving. Sometimes it's closer to Christmas. But for me, those are some of my traditions. I like to have those on when I'm hanging ornaments on my tree.
Yeah.
Or I was telling you and Bradley earlier that Aaron and I have Department 56 Snow Village houses that we've collected. And it was a huge tradition for him when he was a child. And it's something he loves. And he and I both enjoy jigsaw puzzles. And so putting the houses together into a village with the businesses and the accessories and all feels a lot like
a big jigsaw
a big
puzzle.
3D puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have a pretty big collection. I'm not saying that to brag, but we're going to try to, I don't know, narrow some of the houses down and put that up this year. We haven't done it in 10 years. And so I'm really looking forward to that, hopefully being up early December and letting that stay up as long as the tree's up and all. We don't have our tree up yet.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of holiday fun ahead of me.
See, and that's so life-giving and so nostalgic and sweet. And, you know,
it is.
I think like the things that we've talked about today off and on that we remember from our holidays have almost nothing to do with the gift that we opened.
Yeah.
And everything to do with just being with family. Yeah. And that can honestly be as simple as it's your everyday Tuesday, but you're together and there's like a Christmas movie on, or maybe you add a cookie. Maybe you don't. You don't have to.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think just, you know, making the intention to just be together and celebrate the season. And when you notice or you're going into a week and you feel pressed and you feel really stressed out, you can stop and go, okay, you know what? Maybe we need to reevaluate. Maybe we need to take something off the plate. Like I would love to go and, you know, support my second cousin's daughter who's playing a random nutcracker in the nutcracker, but I don't have that 3 hours. And so I'm going to skip it this year.
Yes.
And I support you and I'm going to.
Can't wait to see the pictures in the video.
Yes. And that's okay.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yeah, I love that.
So do what brings you life, and the other stuff, it's okay to just let it take it off your plate.
Yeah.
And with the kids, you know, there's such a pressure like getting the gift and that's, you know, it just, I don't know. I just don't take that pressure. Like they're not going to remember it.
No, my parents went really above and beyond, not maybe FAO Schwartz style, but there was a lot. We were really blessed too. But the things that I remember, my favorite Christmas memories from when I was a kid was we had a tradition that on Christmas Eve, my mom had a like a metal can that was decorated Christmas style for each of us, for my mom, my dad, my brother, and me. And we were allowed to open those on Christmas Eve. Everything else, Santa and everything else, we had to wait until the next day. And so it was one of my favorite traditions was opening up that can on Christmas Eve, and almost always it was Christmas pajamas. I don't remember what they looked like. I just remember the excitement and the anticipation. And the thing is, I never figured out until I was an adult that they were always going to be jammies in there. Like, she was so good at, like, she didn't tell us that was what was going to be there, but we would get to have that special moment that day. And then her aunt, which would be my great aunt, would have my brother and me over sometime between Thanksgiving and Christmas on, like, maybe a Saturday, and we would bake Christmas cookies with her. And while we waited on the Christmas cookies to bake, we would watch Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it was just like, those are my favorite memories. And it's stuff that didn't have anything to do with what was under the tree or what I unwrapped or what Santa brought me. It was that special time with family and the anticipation and excitement around the magic of Christmas.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that was such a felt thing as a kid. Like, there was just a knowing that, like, we were going to have more intentional time together during that season of the year. And that as a kid was so life-giving. And I feel like we live in, I don't know why I'm getting emotional, but, you know, we live in this age where we always have our phones in our faces. You know, and so just putting the phone down and, like, getting out the Toll House cookie dough roll that's not from scratch, but letting the kids use a plastic knife and put it in the oven together. It's amazing to watch how that fills up their little tanks and how I walk away going, ugh. You know?
I do. Because you're just being present with them in the moment. And I mean, there's a whole lot more to it, I'm sure, to the psychology of, like, making food together. Like, I think that's really special. But just being present with them and, like you're saying, not having our phones or iPads or tablets or computers in front of our faces.
Yeah. Save that for Christmas morning.
Oh, yes. But I mean, they have their purpose. I'm
absolutely
in front of screens a lot, but I do love the time when they're set aside. Even just like, even with my husband, you know, it's easy for us, you know, not having kiddos interacting with us and begging for our attention all the time. It's easy for the two of us to be in the same room together and have screens in front of us or AirPods in and doing things, having a completely different experience. And not truly being present with each other. And it's just a habit, and it's something we all slip into at some point. But it's really special. Like, moments with him, even around the holidays for me, center around us making food together or us making a cocktail together and just standing in the kitchen and having that 10, 15, 20 minutes of face-to-face time that we maybe aren't as intentional with at other times during the week, you know?
And I think this is such a good time to remember that the worth that you bring to your marriage and your family is never in the parties you plan, the gifts you buy. It's in you.
And the money that's being spent.
It's you.
It's your time.
It's you. Like, today, you know, this has been such a busy season, and Bradley had the day off, and I was coming back from the kitchen, like putting a bowl away, and I just came up behind him and gave him a hug. And I sat down, and he looked at me. He's like, "Thank you for that." And I'm like, "Oh, baby."
I know.
You know, but our presence is what really, like, that's what blesses the people around us.
You know, I posted something on Facebook, I don't know, maybe like 3 weeks ago, and it got so many shares and comments and loves and likes. And it was so simple, but I think it just struck a chord with people. It was a pretty graphic, but it said, you know, be the person who, how did it go? Make sure others are seen, valued, and heard. And those are things that we can do without spending
a dime.
Yep. And oftentimes I find in myself, so I don't know if this will resonate with you, but oftentimes I find that the people that I give the least amount of sight, hearing, and value to are the people I'm closest to.
Yeah.
I take them for granted.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's really important that we do take that deep breath and choose maybe over the party or over the shopping or whatever to stop and be present and loving. And it could just be a hug or a kiss or an I appreciate you.
Yep.
You are the gift of my life kind of thing. You know, relationships are so important and they can easily fall to the back burner in the busyness of this season. So even if it's 30 seconds, like you're saying, where you stop and give your husband a hug or your wife a hug, it's just...
That's everything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, and those are the
you
things.
saw him.
Yeah. And that's the stuff that we're going to really remember. And all the other stuff, like I'm just thinking about, you know, the moms and the wives and the friends that just want so badly to, because we love so hard.
Yeah.
We want to give the best to the people that we love. Yeah, we do. And
on.
And on. And I don't know, you know, just really like what was the term that I read out of, I think it was Emily Lay's book years ago. It was such a good phrase. Ruthless clean out. I loved it. Ooh.
Ruthless clean out. Okay, so give me an example.
So she was talking about physically cleaning out your house.
Yes.
But relating it to this, do a ruthless clean out on the things that are only going to weigh you down. They're not going to bring life. They're going to bring stress, and do away with it.
I love that. I think I kind of did that the last few years with COVID because I just didn't have I didn't have the emotional bandwidth, you know, but I think that it's good to take a moment and go, okay, what do I want to add back in and be very intentional about what I add back in? Like which parties do I want to attend? You know, the Snow Village thing, we hadn't put that up in 10 years, but it is something that we enjoy doing together.
Yeah.
So it's, I believe, I hope it's going to bring us a lot of joy and not a lot of stress.
Maybe a little bit of both. It's
maybe,
okay.
Maybe. But just the moment, especially when it's complete, sitting down and looking at it together that is what I remember. I mean, the part of putting it together and having those conversations was fun, but like just having that moment, and sometimes even with the Christmas tree, like he and I will sit down and just admire it for a moment and just have this moment of, we did this together. This is beautiful. Let's be still in that moment.
Yep.
And gosh, it can be hard to do this time of year, but man, those moments just feel peaceful.
They do.
And joyful.
Yeah. And they're very life-giving.
Yes.
And anything.
And restful.
Yes. And anything that's not that, take it off.
Yeah.
Just take it off.
Yep.
So,
you know, I think I'm going to wrap with this. Because of my family history and then getting married and all, we typically have 3 visits to make on holidays, especially Thanksgiving and Christmas are the big ones for us. And we have a pattern. And we let everybody know what the expectations are ahead of time. They start asking, are you going to be here? Are you going to be here? Who's coming when? Just let them all know. And, you know, it might look a little bit different for us this year, but previous years, we'd go to my mom's first. We'd be there for a couple of hours. Then we'd go to my dad's, who lived nearby. We'd be there for a couple of hours. And then we'd drive back to Tyler, and we'd spend time with Aaron's parents for a few hours. And then we'd go home.
Yep.
Everybody knew that was the plan.
Yep.
Everybody was okay with the plan. But again, it came back to having a plan.
You have to have a plan. And clarity is kindness.
It really is.
So when you are first and foremost clear for yourself and for your family, what your boundaries are and what your plan is, then you communicate that out, and you do it in plenty of time so that if somebody, grandma, mom, needs to adjust how this is going to happen this year, she'll have that time. And then by the time the day comes, it'll be great. But
yes,
clarity
I agree.
Is kindness.
Clarity is kindness for sure. And yeah, just make a plan.
Yeah.
Just make a plan.
I'm so excited for everybody now. They have I don't know. I feel like this season can just be so amazing and life-giving. It's always such a great way to end the year and to start fresh into a new season that I really hope everybody just oozes out of it as much joy and replenishment as they possibly can.
The Celebrating Women podcast wants to hear from you. Email us a voice message to celebratingwomenpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear your story or the story of an incredible woman you know. Become part of the conversation on social media. Facebook.com/celebratingwomenpodcast. On Instagram, search Celebrating Women Podcast. The Celebrating Women podcast has been presented by Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler, Texas. Book your appointment today. Stop by the spa in Cumberland Shopping Center or online at handandstonetyler.com. The Celebrating Women podcast is created and hosted by Mandee Montana and Ashley Fisher. Support the show for as little as $3 per month at celebratingwomenpodcast.buzzsprout.com or visit our show notes. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to the Celebrating Women podcast.